Child development forms the very fabric of who we become, not merely a sequence of skills acquired over time, but a dynamic, integrated process through which the brain, body, and emotions mature together. To truly understand children, whether as parents, teachers, or caregivers, we must look beyond isolated abilities and view development as a living, interconnected system of growth that unfolds across multiple domains: cognitive, language, motor, and social-emotional. Development is holistic. To understand one part, we must understand the whole. Development, in its true scientific sense, differs from growth and learning. Growth refers primarily to physical changes, height, weight, and bodily structures, driven largely by biology. Learning, on the other hand, involves acquiring new knowledge or skills through experience, education, and practice. Development bridges these two. It is the biological and psychological unfolding that enables learning to occur, the process through which the child's capacities for thinking, communicating, moving, and relating to others become increasingly organized, complex, and adaptive. Development is not a straight line, but a pattern of progress, pauses, and reorganizations that vary from child to child. From birth to around age 2, we observe the remarkable sensoromotor stage, described by Jean Piaget, in which infants learn primarily through their senses and movement. During this time, motor and cognitive systems are deeply intertwined. Grasping a toy or crawling toward a caregiver strengthens neural pathways that later support problem-solving and spatial understanding. By the end of this period, most children have achieved core motor milestones such as sitting, crawling, standing, and walking, alongside cognitive and linguistic achievements like object permanence and the emergence of first words. These are not simply milestones to check off, but indicators of a brain that is learning to coordinate action with thought. Between ages 2 and 6, development enters a phase of rapid language expansion and imaginative thought. Vocabulary may leap from a few dozen words to over 10,000 as children learn the symbolic power of language to express emotions, plan actions, and negotiate with others. This is also a time of growing motor coordination, running, climbing, and drawing, all of which are connected to the development of planning and attention in the brain's prefrontal regions. Play becomes the primary vehicle of learning, integrating all domains of development. Through pretend play, for instance, a child practices linguistic flexibility, emotional understanding, and problem-solving while refining fine motor control as they manipulate objects and props. From 6 to 10 years, children's development becomes more refined and interdependent. Cognition expands to include logical reasoning and metacognition, the ability to think about one's own thinking. Motor skills become precise, supporting handwriting, sports, and musical abilities, which in turn foster patience, coordination, and perseverance. Language evolves from basic expression to complex communication. Children can now understand multiple perspectives and engage in sophisticated social dialogue. Emotional regulation improves through both brain maturation and social experience, allowing children to navigate friendships, cooperation, and conflict. A critical insight from modern developmental neuroscience is that no domain develops in isolation. The brain's architecture for movement, emotion, and thinking overlaps extensively. For example, studies show that early motor delays can predict later difficulties in attention and reading, not because one causes the other, but because both rely on shared neural circuits involving timing, coordination, and sequencing. Similarly, social-emotional development underpins learning. A child who feels safe, understood, and connected learns more effectively. Emotional security fosters neural growth. Stress and neglect, by contrast, can dysregulate the systems responsible for attention and memory. Understanding variability is central to recognizing typical versus atypical development. Developmental milestones are broad indicators of progression, not rigid deadlines. Some children walk at 10 months, others at 16, some begin speaking in full sentences at 2 years, others closer to 3. This variability reflects individual differences in temperament, genetic factors, environment, and opportunity. However, consistent deviations across multiple domains, such as delays in both motor and communication skills, or persistent difficulties in social engagement, may signal developmental concerns that warrant evaluation. Red flags include a lack of babbling or gestures by 12 months, no words by 16 months, limited eye contact, loss of previously acquired skills, or extreme emotional unresponsiveness. Early identification and support are crucial, as the brain's plasticity allows for significant recovery and adaptation when intervention begins early. In practical terms, educators and parents can foster development by providing enriched, responsive environments. Talk to children frequently, model curiosity, and encourage exploration. Allow unstructured playtime, which stimulates creativity and executive functioning. Provide opportunities for movement, fine and gross motor activities alike, as these build the neural scaffolding for later academic learning. Offer emotional safety through predictable routines and empathy, as consistent nurturing relationships are among the most powerful influences on brain growth. Importantly, development is not simply about acquiring skills, but about the integration of those skills into coherent, flexible functioning. A child's ability to plan a story, share it with a friend, and respond to feedback draws simultaneously on language, cognition, motor coordination, and emotion regulation. Observing development means attending to patterns, how the child approaches problems, interacts with others, expresses feelings, and uses the body to explore. Is the pattern coherent, adaptive, and progressing? That is the essence of healthy development. In sum, child development is a continuous, dynamic interplay of growth, learning, and adaptation. It unfolds uniquely in each child, shaped by both biology and experience. For parents and educators, the greatest value lies in observing with curiosity and compassion, noticing not only what children can do, but how they do it, and how one area of growth supports another. When we appreciate development as holistic, we begin to see that the foundation for future learning, resilience, and well-being is laid not through isolated achievements, but through the seamless integration of mind, body, and emotion. Development is not a checklist, it is the unfolding of human potential. The foundations of child development. Child development is the continuous, predictable, yet unique process by which children acquire the abilities, behaviors, and understanding that shape their future learning, relationships, and well-being. It is not simply growth in size or an accumulation of knowledge, it is the organization and integration of body, brain, and behavior over time. Development is holistic, meaning that changes in one domain influence others. A child's motor progress supports thinking, language enhances social understanding, and emotional security enables learning. What is development, and how is it different from growth or learning? Growth refers to physical increase, height, weight, muscle mass, and body proportions. Learning is the acquisition of knowledge or skills through experience and practice. Development, however, refers to the progressive unfolding of biological and psychological functions that allow a child to think, move, feel, and relate in increasingly complex ways. Development occurs across four main domains. Cognitive development, how children think, reason, remember, and solve problems. Language development, how they understand and use speech and communication. Motor development, both gross, large muscle, and fine, small muscle coordination. Social emotional development, how they connect, regulate feelings, and build relationships. All four domains interact constantly. For instance, when a baby reaches for a toy, motor, names it, language, and smiles at you, social emotional, all systems are working in harmony. Developmental milestones. What typically happens when infancy, birth to 12 months, motor, lifts head by 2 months, rolls over by 4 months, sits without support by 6 months, crawls by 9 months, stands or cruises by 10 to 12 months, and often takes first steps around 12 months. Language. Begins cooing at 2 months, babbling at 6 months, responds to name and simple words by 9 months, says first words around 12 months. Cognitive. Follows moving objects, recognizes caregivers, shows curiosity by reaching for objects, and understands cause and effect, e.g., shaking a rattle makes a sound. Social emotional. Smiles responsively by 2 months, enjoys social games like peekaboo by 9 months, and shows clear attachment to caregivers by the end of the first year. Critical periods. Vision, hearing, and attachment must develop properly in this first year. Lack of eye contact, absence of babbling, or no response to sound can signal early developmental red flags. Toddlerhood, 1 to 3 years. Motor. Walks independently between 12 to 15 months, climbs stairs with help by 18 months, runs and kicks a ball by 2 years, and by 3 years can jump and ride a tricycle. Language. Uses 10 to 20 words by 18 months, 2-word sentences by 2 years, mommy go, and 200 to 300 words by age 3. Speech should be understood by family members. Cognitive. Begins pretend play, follows 2-step instructions, understands object categories, animals, food, and recognizes themselves in mirrors. Social emotional. Expresses affection, shows independence, me do it, may have tantrums as self-control develops, begins to play beside other children, parallel play. Potty training. Typically begins between 18 months and 3 years, when the child can recognize bladder signals, communicate needs, and physically manage clothing. Delays beyond 4 years without medical cause may require guidance. Critical milestones. Walking by 18 months and saying meaningful words by 16 to 18 months are major developmental indicators. Absence of these suggests possible delay. Early childhood, 3 to 5 years. Motor. Can hop, stand on one foot, throw and catch a ball, draw basic shapes, and by 5 years can dress independently and use utensils well. Language. Uses complex sentences, understands basic grammar, tells simple stories, and asks endless why questions. Strangers should understand most of what the child says by age 4. Cognitive. Engages in imaginative play, begins to understand time, yesterday, tomorrow, sorts objects by color and shape, and begins early counting. Social emotional. Forms friendships, shows empathy, can share with support, and begins to regulate emotions better. Critical periods. By age 4, speech should be mostly intelligible. Unclear speech, absence of pretend play, or inability to follow simple directions may indicate language or cognitive delay. Middle childhood, 6 to 10 years. Motor. Gains strength and coordination for sports, writing, and drawing. Fine motor control refines. Handwriting becomes neater, and physical endurance increases. Language. Vocabulary expands dramatically, up to 20,000 words by age 10. Reading and writing consolidate, and children begin to understand figurative language and humor. Cognitive. Moves from intuitive to logical thought, can classify, measure, and solve problems systematically. Begins to understand cause and consequence and perspective taking. Social emotional. Values peer relationships, develops a sense of competence, and begins to form moral understanding. Self-esteem becomes linked to achievement and relationships. Critical milestones. Difficulty mastering reading or basic math by age 8, ongoing clumsiness or significant emotional regulation problems may indicate learning or developmental differences such as dyslexia, dyspraxia, or ADHD. Developmental variability. What is normal and what is a delay? Normal variability means that children reach milestones at different times within a healthy range. Walking, for example, may occur anywhere between 9 and 18 months and still be typical. Similarly, some children speak early, others later. This reflects differences in temperament, genetics, and environment. A developmental delay occurs when a child lags significantly behind peers in one or more domains for their age. Delays may be global, across multiple areas, often neurological or genetic in origin. Specific, for example, speech delay, motor delay. Red flags include no smiling or eye contact by 3 months, no babbling by 9 months, no single words by 16 months, no 2-word phrases by 2 years, not walking by 18 months, persistent loss of previously acquired skills, no interest in play or other children by age 3. Early detection is critical. During the first 5 years, the brain is at its highest plasticity. Connections form and reorganize rapidly, making early intervention highly effective. The interdependence of development. Each developmental domain supports the others. When a child learns to walk, they explore the world, stimulating curiosity, cognitive, naming objects, language, and sharing discoveries, social emotional. Likewise, emotional regulation enhances focus and learning. A calm, supported child learns more effectively. This interdependence underscores the importance of observing patterns, not isolated skills. For parents and teachers, the practical task is to observe, support, and not rush. Offer children time and space to practice skills through play, conversation, movement, and routine. Provide warmth and security. Emotional safety is the soil in which all development grows. Key takeaway: development is not a race, but a rhythm, an interplay between biology and experience. It is holistic, meaning every new skill builds upon others. Children develop best in environments rich with language, movement, affection, and opportunity. When milestones are delayed, observation and early support are essential, but equally, we must respect the natural variability that makes every child unique. Development is the story of integration, how the mind, body, and heart grow together to make us fully human.